Good evening and welcome to the Chris Salcedo Show here on Newsmax TV. As the country slips into crisis after crisis, courtesy of the children who now run our government, we've noticed a certain segment of our population is absent in detailing this threat: the mainstream press. It's not just that the press is derelict in covering issues that are of interest to conservatives like freedom, liberty, prosperity, and national security. They won't even cover the issues they claim are important to them. Why is some racism okay with the press? A question we think major so-called news outlets should be forced to answer in tonight's preamble. As you're all well aware, the vast majority of the press on the local and national level are packed with dedicated Democrats, not dedicated journalists. Very few so-called reporters have the ability to check their own personal liberal biases at the door and report fairly. Chances are, if an issue is important to you, the mainstream press won't cover it. The reason they won't cover it is because they have their own agendas. Time was the press in America was there to serve we the people. Now the majority of the so-called journalists only serve the wealthy and privileged on the American left. Allow me to illustrate. Despite war breaking out in the Middle East, the subcommittee on the Middle East, North Africa, and global terrorism has yet to schedule a hearing on the Israeli-Hamas situation. Instead, socialist Democrats who are in charge of that committee have just one hearing scheduled for May. They want to explore the State Department's efforts to combat transitional white identity terrorism. Naturally, the GOP is frustrated that Democrats are willing to debase our government by ignoring world security to push the lies being told by devotees of critical race theory. But if it wasn't for the Washington Free Beacon and the Chris Salcedo Show, you'd never know about the degenerates in the Democrat Socialist Party who are pushing racism against whites. Ironically, leftists are getting a twofer in this deal. Not only are they engaging in a fantasy to demonize whites, but by their inaction, they are reinforcing their anti-Semitism by continuing to sit idly by while terrorists continue to relentlessly rain down rockets targeting innocent Israeli civilians. The next story comes out of my home state of Texas. A judge has put a stop to the Joe Biden administration's openly racist policies. The U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Texas granted a temporary restraining order against the Biden Small Business Association. America First Legal asked for a temporary restraining order seeking to protect its client, a restaurant owner in Texas. As with most businesses, the China virus decimated the restaurant owner's bottom line. He applied to the SBA for help from the Small Business Administration's Restaurant Revitalization Fund. But Mr. Biden was giving preferential treatment to minority-owned businesses, discriminating against any business owner who was white. Judge O'Connor of the U.S. District Court realized, as does the Chris Salcedo Show, that discriminating based on skin color is illegal. The judge wrote that the plaintiffs are likely to succeed on the merits of their claim that defendants' use of race-based and sex-based preferences in the administration of the RRF violates the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution. The Salcedo Show also thinks that the SBA has violated the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. Now, if I were that restaurant owner, I would look into suing the U.S. government for their violation of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. Sadly, if you didn't hear about Biden and his administration's racism from Newsmax or America First Legal, you wouldn't know about it, as the basket of bias press has yet to widely report on this story. Lastly, we have the case of Mayor Lori Lightfoot, the mayor of Chicago, the third largest city in America. Lori Lightfoot has declared that she will only give interviews to black and brown reporters. You heard that correctly. She will not give interviews to white reporters, a stance that she has doubled down on today, as a matter of fact. In a rare display of integrity among the press, a Latino reporter rejected Mayor Lightfoot's bigotry, refusing to interview her. Reporter Gregory Pratt tweeted, quote, "I am a Latino reporter at Chicago Tribune, whose interview request was granted for today. However, I asked the mayor's office to lift its condition on others. And when they said no, I respectfully canceled. Politicians don't get to choose who covers them," end quote. But even in this moment of integrity, Mr. Pratt misses the big picture. Where it is true that politicians shouldn't get to choose who covers them, the real issue is that Lori Lightfoot, the mayor of Chicago, is a racist. A point that Mr. Pratt should have pointed out if he truly opposes racism. Let's conduct an intellectual exercise, shall we? Let's consider the mayors of other big cities. What if the mayor of Jacksonville, Florida, Lenny Curry, said that he would only grant interviews to white reporters? Let's take another big city, the city of Fort Worth, Texas. What if Mayor Betsy Price had said she would only give interviews to white reporters? Do you think Gregory Pratt of the Chicago Tribune would conclude that these two white Republicans simply breached a protocol that says that politicians don't get to choose who covers them? Of course not. He and ABC and NBC and CBS, the New York Times, CNN, MSNBS, the entirety of the media would devote days of coverage on racist white mayors in major cities, and they would be right to do so. Indeed, the Chris Salcedo Show would also decry any politician who is as racist as Mayor Lori Lightfoot. So why do we hear crickets from the mainstream press when Democrat racism rears its ugly head? Do our friends in the press really oppose racism, or just racism that is real or imagined from Republicans and conservatives? The vast majority of the mainstream press, especially on cable networks like CNN and MSNBS, they are dedicated Democrats, not dedicated journalists. If the press were fair, they'd be highlighting the Democrats' racism and anti-Semitism. The question is, why aren't they? NBC's nightly news anchor Lester Holt may provide us with a clue.
I think it's become clearer that fairness is overrated. Well, before you run off and tweet that headline, let me explain a bit. The idea that we should always give two sides equal weight and merit does not reflect the world we find ourselves in.
As we've stated before, left-wingers can't and won't live up to the impossible standards they impose on their political enemies. But there's such a lack of integrity and intellect in the ranks of the press today, they can't even live up to the simple stuff. The Chris Salcedo Show says racism and Jew hatred is wrong, period. The American people should question the integrity of any media outlet that doesn't equally apply that standard. America also deserves answers as to why the press allows leftist politicians like Lori Lightfoot to get away with being openly racist.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, where real news for real people.